This is Mastering Mathematics with your teacher, Karen Weston.
Welcome again to another in the series, Mastering Mathematics. Here to bring you that program from the Ministry of Education using its EBU unit and the Mathematics Center and ABS Television. This is Karen Weston saying, welcome, do sit in because we have a packed program for you. However, before we get into this, I must tell you, there was such a disturbing news today that I don't know how I'm still standing. But yes, it was one of my mathematics teachers who got cut down so early in his prime of life. I speak to you of Sean Williams. And so from the education department and the teaching fraternity, we would like to extend our deepest sympathy to his family. Sean has been a dedicated teacher working for me around the clock. To my great satisfaction, I do have a token here to remember him by. He sought last year to improve the project that his children at Old Road was doing. And so this is something that Denisha Joseph produced from the Old Road Secondary School, from the Old Road Primary School. Sean, wherever your soul is, may the Almighty God have mercy upon you and the perpetrators who committed such a wanton act. But as we say, with God, all things will be possible and we will get through this. And through the love of God our Savior, all will be well. Let us get on with our mathematics. And today, as we said, I'm getting into computation because I am proud now that I know that parents, you can stay at home and do your factors and start doing your tables for your students, because I'm still with my little ones, because I don't want you forcing things upon them. Slowly, because there's only one boundary to the information we want to give them. Now, today I'm going to do fraction, and again, I have something to say to my teachers, Form 1 teachers in the secondary school. If there is one topic in mathematics that those primary school teachers do very thoroughly, is fractions. Yes, you have a class with multiple intelligence, with people coming from different schools, but they would have been taught fractions using different methods. Check and see if the information is correct, and do not try to reinvent the wheel again and start telling them you have to do it my way. Look and see, because there are several methods in which we can get to the same solution. All right? So for your fractions, make certain that you are just seeing that the students understand what they're doing and that it is well. All right? Now, we are going to go into fractions, because as far as we know, I don't know what Miss Weston is talking about. What is this word, fraction? We talk about whole numbers, we talk about integers, and now we're introducing the whole concept of fractions. We say that when we have a number and it is written as a number, so we can have one number over a second number, then we are into the realms of a fraction. We're into the realms of fractions. So, right, a number written on, you would say easily, a number written on top of another number. But what is the meaning of all of this? And so let us get with the names first. Yes, we have a dividing line here, okay? And the number on top is usually called the numerator. Okay, numerator. All right. So that number on top would be called our numerator. And the number at the bottom would be called the denominator. Denominator. Now, it's not just for style or just saying that we want to choose things. Each number, each word has a separate part to perform in terms of what we are doing. Okay? So then, what is one of the first things we have to do is to get the meaning of the words, so that from the beginning, the concept starts where the students understand what each word means. Okay? And the first part of it is let us start with our bottom part, because that's our foundation. And the denominator, this tells us that we would have had a whole, all right? If it's a whole cake, if it's a whole pizza, if it's a set of 10 marbles, that is called a whole, all right? And then we may want to divide them up into equal parts. So for example, if I had this circle, okay, if I had this circle and I wanted to divide that circle into 4 equal parts, I could have gone here, okay, and I could have done that. And I would have been saying 1, although one of them look a little big to me, 3 and 4, all right? Let's say we have 4 equal parts here. That number of parts into which we have divided this circle is called the denominator. So that if a teacher had to ask a child in a class, what is the denominator? The child would say 4. Okay, so for this part, the denominator would be 4. Now, if the teacher says, okay, so I see you with a brown marker in your bag. I want you to shade 2 of these parts. And I did this, all right? Any 2 parts, all right? They're supposed to be equal, all right? So when we do that, we would have shaded what? 2 out of the 4. 2 out of the 4. The 2 would represent our numerator, all right? So for this fraction, this would have been the 2 out of the 4. So what can we say? What do we know about a fraction? And we go right away and we say a fraction has 2 parts. The names are numerator and denominator. Fraction says we take what we are calling a whole, and a whole does not mean all the time that it is one thing that is just in one set. A whole can be a dozen eggs. A whole can be 20 marbles. Okay, a whole can be 5 cashew nuts, and that is what. So whatever the sum total is, we are calling that the denominator. All right. Then the numerator then will be talking and saying about things that I like to say that we are giving away. You can take these. That is what we actually say. And in this instance, when we shaded these 2, we said we were giving away 2. So the denominator tells us how many parts we have divided the whole, how many equal parts we have divided the whole into, and the numerator says how many we are dealing with. All right? So that is what we know immediately. Take it slowly, teachers. If you get your children knowing these first 2 concepts, after that, we're going to introduce what we know we do with numbers. What do we do with numbers? Yes, we add them, we subtract them, we divide them, and we multiply them. But do not rush this first part of it. Let them have fun, okay? Let them use the little cards. You can ask them to give them the numbers. Everybody can come up, take something out of a basket, and you're saying, I am going to be doing 3/4. So they come with their little diagrams to show what 3/4 mean. Somebody may want to say, I want to represent 6/8, all right? So they have this in mind, and they're coming and they're shading. Does not have to be the same shade. The whole class does not have to be doing the same thing, all right? Give them their space. Remember, every time, mathematics is a discovery subject. We can have 2 out of 4 too, all right? Give them something. As soon as you finish introducing that little concept, let them do something practically to concretize the whole stuff. When we come back, we will tell you that you would also have to tell them where in their little lives they are going to use this mathematical concept. Go and have a break because it's very hot, and I want you to enjoy yourself while we take you through on this journey for mathematics. And this one is for Sean Williams.
Whenever possible, draw a diagram. Even though you may be able to visualize the situation mentally, a hand-drawn diagram will allow you to label the picture, to add auxiliary lines, and to view the situation from different perspectives. Carefully read over the sections of your textbook assigned by your teacher, and look carefully at the sample problems. Decide if you benefit more by reading before or after the instructor covers the material.
Don't look on what I cannot do. Focus on what I can do. I may not say what I do, but I can hear and feel it as strongly.
I may not hear, but that does not and should not affect my ability to learn and to function in the real world.
I am a gifted student. I need the opportunity to soar. Support me in my climb to higher levels of learning.
Some of our children have special educational needs. They have a right to an education. So let us teach them the way that they learn and help them to achieve their full potential.
Right, I know you are happy. And I know you're learning something because I can see it on your faces. Yes, you say, well, Miss Weston, you're a good man. You're behind the screen and you can see. Yes, I can feel it from you coming in here, okay? And let us remember with sadness in our heart, our fallen brother Sean. Lord have mercy upon him and his soul and his family. I wish you all the best, and just remember that God usually takes care of us. And when we think things are so difficult and we don't know how to go on, He will give us the strength and fortify us. To all the staff and students of the Old Road Primary School, we express again our deepest sympathy, and we know that a hole would have been left by this senseless slaughter. But God is in His heaven and He is in control. No, He does not endorse bad things, but where we have bad people in this world, this is what usually happens. Help us to pray for our beautiful state of Antigua and Barbuda. And our mathematics program will go on because we have to do this for Sean. Okay, now, so what do we know? Yes, I can hear you answering me. Right, so what are we dealing with? Fractions. Very good. And what did we say? The fractions then would be when we are using our numbers in two parts. And what are the name of those parts? Right, they are the numerator and the denominator. What did we say the functions were? The numerator tells us how many of the parts we are dealing with, and the denominator tells us how many parts we have divided what we are calling a whole into. And we said a whole does not mean it has to be one entity. It can be in several parts. So for example, your whole can come from a dozen eggs. It can come from 24 mangoes, okay, and it can come from 5 pieces. So we understand that concept of what a fraction is. Having done that, you know, we treat fractions like children. You don't have a child and says everybody's name is Patsy or everybody's name is Karen. So you're going to meet Karen Weston, the first, Karen Weston, the second. Only if you name Michael Jackson, you're calling everybody Michael, all right? But right now, no, we are Antiguans, and we are going to call ourselves different fractions, so different names. So the fractions that we are dealing with, so too, our early mathematicians set for us the different names. So what can we talk about when we talk about the names of fractions? We can talk about a vulgar fraction. And that is VULGAR and fraction. And we can also talk about mixed fractions, okay? Mixed, okay? Fraction. Let's write it out. Fraction. What's another fraction that we do know? Yes. We also know that we have a fraction. And what do we call it? An improper fraction. Okay, an improper fraction. Improper fraction. Okay. And then, what do we talk about all the time? We talk about equivalent fractions, don't we? Yes, we talk about equivalent, okay? Equivalent fractions. And what about those fractions that we talk about when their denominators are 10 and powers of 10? What do we call them? Do we know about those? But that is for a different topic, but we're just going to put it in here because we want you to know it's a family of these same topic, the fraction. So they may be the cousin, but what do we call them? Yes, we call them decimal fractions. Okay, we talk about decimal fractions. Okay, so a far and a distant cousin in this number 5, we're going to leave that one for a complete new topic. But we're going to look at our vulgar fraction, our mixed fraction, our improper fraction, and equivalent fractions. Those are the ones that we would want to sit around a dinner table and have something to eat. All right? Let us start first of all with our vulgar fraction. What is a vulgar fraction? What is a vulgar fraction? And you know, the children can be using their own little words to get all these things. Because what am I going to say to you right now? I am just going to put something here and say, when I wrote 2/4, that is a vulgar fraction. So it's not every time that we have something that we're just going to sit down and in a class and give students and say, this is the definition. We're going to pry, we're going to ask them to help us to construct a definition, okay? So it's not what somebody said or what somebody wrote, but it is coming from them. Why not split them up into different groups and see who comes up with a definition that we can call our working definition for our class? Because this may be, my name is Karen and starts with a C, so it may be class C. And what is class C saying? And what did we derive in that class for our definition, using as our template the standard definition that is given for the vulgar fraction? I have chosen to tell these children what a vulgar fraction is by giving an example. What is it I want to achieve? I want them to look, to examine, to construct, and then to use their intellect to see if they can come up with a definition. Notice we're cutting out the root, not somebody just coming and giving you and saying this is the definition. What do you notice? That is one of the first things we can ask them. What do we notice? And again, we notice that where we talk about, because we're talking about numbers, and wherever they are, all right, they would have their sizes. So what do we notice? What do we have on top? And what do we call the top number? So first of all, we're going to get them talking the language, the vocabularies associated with mathematics, all right? And right away, what you notice in terms of the numerator and in comparison to the denominator? Is there anything special? And I hear that little smart one. Yes, that one you think that was not listening or knowing something, telling me that the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So again, so what would we say about a vulgar fraction? In a vulgar fraction, the numerator, all right, the numerator is smaller, all right, than the denominator. What would be our second exercise after that? What would be our second exercise after that? We would have our students giving us their own examples of what they understood us to say when we told them that a vulgar fraction was a fraction in which the numerator was smaller than the number for the numerator was smaller than the number for the denominator. What sort of examples do you think they would have come up with? I'm listening, and I can hear somebody saying it is 3/12, and that would be correct. What other one do we hear them saying? And it is 5/7. That would also be correct. And what else? And somebody says, teacher, I know, yes, it's a half. And that is right. And you let the children play with these things. By the time they leave the classroom and they're going out, even for break, they already know what a vulgar fraction is. All right? Now, let us go very quickly before we end here for tonight, because we want you to absorb these things, to know them, to be able to talk them and to say the language. And we're going to be grouping them, and I want to say, so we know a vulgar fraction has its numerator smaller than the denominator. What if I had to ask you about an improper fraction? What do you think would have been the answer for that one? What is an improper fraction? And if a vulgar fraction is a fraction where the numerator is smaller than the denominator, I am saying to you that if I gave you this number, and it could be 9/4, that would be an improper fraction. If I gave you 9/4, that would be an improper fraction. What do we notice? And very soon you're telling me 9 is bigger than 4. So what can we say in terms of mathematics and in relation to the fraction? The numerator is bigger than the denominator. The number in the numerator is larger than the number for our denominator. And that is it. So they write their own little definitions that for our improper fraction, the numerator is made of a larger number than the number for the denominator. Okay, and so we could have used, instead of vulgar fraction here, we could have used another word which would have been proper. Okay, so we have proper and we have improper fractions. Now I'm going to leave you tonight with these two types of fractions. Tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to look at mixed fraction and equivalent fraction, and I'll tell you something about the decimal fraction, which I'll be taking in a complete lesson. All right, so these are the fractions that we're going to be using. Teachers in our primary school, do not give the children large numbers. We need them to get the concept. It does not change, nothing changes, and all we're asking for are the concepts to the mathematics topics. All right, so today we started with our fractions, and right away we went, first of all, notice you must start from definitions, where we're talking about what is a fraction. So we had to establish that first. It has two parts, numerator with our denominator. Use examples. Let the children come up with their own examples. Give them little cards, etc., that they know they can construct their own, all right? They don't have to be anything looking fancy. Cut off a piece of the cardboard boxes down the road, bring it in the classroom, and let the children show you how they can get fancy things out of it. And we're still doing our topic, fractions. All right, not the commercial world. We are now constructors of our own stuff, and we are independent, and we're training people to be entrepreneurs. All right, and after that, now we're talking about the types of fractions. So we have different names for them, and we must know them. You can't just say fraction. You have to be asking, what type of fraction? What's the name of the fraction that I'm dealing with? And that is where I'm going to leave you tonight to say, all right, and you can say, now in my old age, may learn mathematics, but that is true. Age is just a number and it is never too old, all right? So continue learning mathematics, and please pray for the family of our fallen brother and remember him, because all he wanted ever to do was to make certain that we promote mathematics in this country, and to see where there was a weakness that we could have filled a gap within it. Sean, I know wherever you are, God will take care of the family that you have left behind. So from the Ministry of Education, from all of us here in the Education Department, we express our sincere sympathy to the family. And as we sign off tonight, let us say a prayer for our nation, Antigua Barbuda. Good night. Do enjoy the rest of the evening.
Join us next time for another in the series, Mastering Mathematics, a production of the Education Broadcasting Unit in the Ministry of Education and ABS TV.